This is version 1 of Prosper Sustainably's ETEP training video on reviewing and updating an ETEP Strategic Work Plan Word document cut sheet for an ETEP Strategic Work Plan designed using Prosper Sustainably's format. An ETEP Strategic Work Plan is the same thing as a Tribal Environmental Plan, or TEP, which is one part of a full EPA-Tribal Environmental Plan, or ETEP. Throughout this video, I will use an ETEP Strategic Work Plan and TEP interchangeably, so you may hear me use one of those words or the other. During this training, I will cover reviewing and updating the cut sheet for a single ETEP Strategic Work Plan program as an alternative to directly updating an ETEP Strategic Work Plan spreadsheet. The process for creating one of these cut sheets is explained in a different training video, so if you have not yet created a Word document cut sheet from the main TEP spreadsheet, please go back and review the video that explains how to do this. All right, so the purpose of this, or when you may want to do this, is if you want staff to review and update a single program area within an ETEP Strategic Work Plan without editing the original spreadsheet document. So this would be the original ETEP Strategic Work Plan document with all of its categories, all of the information. And you may not want staff members in doing an annual review and update to work directly on this spreadsheet for a few good reasons. So one is that you do not have the ability to use track changes when working with a spreadsheet. So if you have staff working and making edits to this, you have no idea what's been changed on any of the programs, and that's probably not a good idea. You may not want staff directly editing the spreadsheet for that reason or for other reasons. And also, if there are proposed changes that are going to occur in the current and future years, you may want these to be reviewed by a supervisor and or other staff members before they are incorporated into the spreadsheet. So in terms of the timing for the review and updates, this training video itself is focusing on an annual review. You may choose to review and update this document more frequently. Ideally, you would conduct a review if you were doing it annually in the months leading up to the end of the year. That may be a calendar year or fiscal year, depending on the timing of your programs and your ETEP Strategic Work Plan. Or if you cannot do it before the end of the fiscal year, then shortly afterwards, but definitely before you prepare next year's work plans, such as your GAP, your Clean Water Act 106 work plans, because it'll be helpful if you already have mapped out what objectives and activities you're going to pursue before you actually prepare those plans. Okay, so the first thing you want to do, so you have this cut sheet right in the Word document. So as I mentioned, this was taken from the spreadsheet document. And in this case, this cut sheet is focused on climate change. This is just being used as an example. I'm going to talk about different topic areas, but typically your cut sheet will just focus on one program area. Your ETEP Strategic Work Plan may have 5, 6 to 12 different program areas. So in this case, the climate change program area is what we've pulled from the main example TEP. So the first thing you want to do is enable track changes. So I'm using Microsoft Word 2016. You may be using a different version, but usually there's a review tab or a review dropdown, and you will be able to enable track changes. So I'm doing that right here by clicking this button. So now when I make changes to this document, they will actually show up in the document so that somebody else can see what I've made changes to. So we're going to focus on just making adjustments to the objectives. So we're not going to touch the description of the priority program areas or the goals in this case. We're just concerned about the objectives, which is the heart of your plan. In this case, there's a series of objectives over the course of 4 years with possible objectives. And starting with fiscal year 2016, and for the purpose of this training video, let's say that fiscal year 2016 is nearing its end and we are updating the plan doing our annual review and update, which is going to actually seek to archive or revise 2016 activities and add another year on the back end. So the plan after we make these changes will actually be from 2017 to 2020 rather than 2016 to 2019, because we always want it to be a 4-year plan. Okay, so the first thing you'll focus on is the current year's, or the year that's ending's objectives. So we're going to look first at 2016 objectives, and in this case, you're going to want to indicate which objectives have been accomplished. So you can choose to indicate this in any way. So what's going to happen is that you're going to indicate that something's been accomplished, and then when somebody updates the ETEP Strategic Work Plan spreadsheet, they're going to transfer this to an archive that tracks the accomplished objectives. So for this case, we're going to say that we're going to highlight objectives that were accomplished in green. So we'll review the objectives. And so first off, and I'm just providing examples, so you would actually go through these line by line. I'm going to just show you an example or two from each year and move on. Otherwise, this will be a very long training video. So first of all, let's say that reviewing this first objective of conducting a climate change vulnerability risk assessment and report, let's say that that objective was not actually accomplished in 2016. So we lost a staff member who was supposed to be working on that particular objective, and they've only recently been rehired. They're still getting up to speed on everything, working on other activities that are covered on this particular program area, and maybe they do air-related stuff as well. So they have not gotten around to starting this yet, and you're going to have this be accomplished in 2017. So we'll make an update to this, and we'll just change this year to 2017. But let's say that, in this case, the develop, test, and evaluate education outreach materials, literature, and activities on climate change issues and opportunities. Let's say that this was accomplished. So we're going to highlight this in green to indicate that it was accomplished. So the person that reviews this afterwards, there'll be some sort of key that you share with them that this has been accomplished, and this should be moved to the archive. All right, so we would do the same thing for all the objectives in 2016. We'd make these changes like this. In some cases, let's say that right here, the participating in forums, that's something you probably do want to do, or you'd want to carry over if you didn't. But let's say, you actually, this is something that you definitely did not want to do, or you decide you're not going to do it in a future year, then maybe you delete it and say, we're not going to pursue this particular activity in a future year. We did not accomplish it in this year. And so you would do that to indicate that it's something that just is no longer going to be pursued. All right, so then in looking at, so you've gone through 2016, and by the end of it, you will have changed the years. Everything will either be highlighted or deleted in some way to show what's happened with that particular activity. You may also choose to add comments to something. So in this case, you may want to make a comment, by saying maybe this is an ongoing activity, or you may want to explain why something was carried over. So you may want to leave notes for somebody else to indicate why a particular activity was marked a certain way or added or something like that. So the comments option is you can highlight something and you can right click it. You also can do the same thing. You can highlight it and then go up to review and then go to add new comment. But this is something that you want to keep track of, and you want to indicate to other people who are reviewing and perhaps actually editing the original or the ETEP spreadsheet. All right, so you'll mark up all of the objectives for 2016, and you'll proceed to 2017. So you do the same thing here. You'll look at all these objectives, and so in this case, let's say that these all make sense. We're definitely going to get training. We definitely pursue funding. We're going to do education outreach again. That's an ongoing activity. So you'll see a lot of these activities are repetitive. So in some cases, you may have an activity here that is not so in this case, obtain staff training. So if this is something that should be done on an annual basis, but it was not included in 2017, then you would probably copy and paste this and add 2017 to it. So one thing that we may want to do is, So this activity, we decided the conducting a climate change vulnerability and risk assessment and preparing a report is going to be pushed forward to 2017. So that may have some impacts on what we're able to accomplish in 2017. So going down here, developing a climate change adaptation and preparedness plan may be something that we now cannot accomplish in 2017. So we're going to be focusing our attention on the vulnerability plan and risk assessment. So we're going to shift this to 2018, and we'll make all these adjustments like this. We may add other activities as well. So you're going to make these changes, and same thing like here, like you're like, you know what, we're not going to do this collaborating, these silly collaboration activities. So let's delete all of these. That's another one we're definitely not going to pursue. Same as in 2016. So you make notes as needed. So another thing that you probably want to do for the upcoming year is integrate activities and objectives from work plans that you may have developed since you last updated your TEP. So you may have last updated your TEP about a year ago, and a few months after that, you developed new work plans in accordance with the TEP, but there were some changes, so some of the things you put in the work plans were not actually already in the TEP. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to incorporate anything in the upcoming fiscal year or anything moving forward that was not already in it into the TEP. So in this case, we're going to pretend that this is a climate change related work plan instead of a water related one, and that we're reviewing this work plan and we're integrating some of these activities. So we're going to pretend right here, we're going to scroll down, and we're going to say that one of these activities right here, so component number 5, identify threats to groundwater quality. And let's just pretend that commitment number 5 is develop a groundwater resources management plan. And that one of the activities that is under this is actually integrating a climate change section into the water resources or groundwater resources management plan. So, we're going to then take this activity and we're going to incorporate it into the TEP. So what you want to do is you'll want to add if you're going to add a new activity that's not there, you're going to need to create some space to do so. So what I like to do is I like to highlight the row and then go to right click, hit insert, and go insert columns above. Another thing you can do is usually when you're highlighting a column, there should be some type of menu that gives you the option to add cells. And in this case, they're located up here, and you can add additional cells. So in this case, we're just going to add one cell. We're going to say 2017, and the objective is going to be to incorporate, so prepare and incorporate a climate change or a section on climate change in the tribal groundwater resources management plan. So one thing you may want to do is actually add capacity indicator numbers as well. So that's what these numbers on the right side are. So this is the year, these are the objectives, and these are capacity indicator numbers from the GAP guidebook. And that is one of the requirements, that if there are capacity indicator numbers associated with a particular objective, that you add those. So you may want to go find and see if there are any particular objectives that relate to that and add those at this time as well. You can also choose to do that later. Another recommendation that I would provide, or that I would say, would be to actually cite the source of any new objectives that you incorporate into the work plan. There is a space in the ETEP Strategic Work Plan to do this. So over here, if you scroll down, this column right here, where is it? Role category, repeating. It's hidden at the moment, so let's unhide that. This has the source of the objective. So why that's important is because if somebody's working on a particular objective or wants to know where it came from, you want to make it easier for them to find it, because there's usually additional details. In the ETEP Strategic Work Plan, you're really focusing on major or annual level objectives. You don't really want to get into the details. So there may be a process involved in this particular objective, and you don't want to provide the details. You just want to focus on the major objective that needs to be accomplished within this particular fiscal year. So in this case, we're going to say that this comes from the FY 16-17 CWA 106 work plan. And that way, and you may want to highlight it as well. That way, when somebody's updating the spreadsheet, they can add that information in there as well. Or somebody reviewing this knows where to go for more information on the particular activity. So same thing, you make adjustments to 2017, you'll move to 2018. So first thing in 2018 we see is, that's another 2017 activity. Another thing, so moving to 2018, the first thing we see is beginning a climate change adaptation preparedness program pilot implementation of the plan. So if the plan itself is only being developed in 2018, then we may not be prepared to begin pilot implementation in 2018. In the plan as was previously written, the implementation actually was occurring in the following year. So in this case, we're going to make an adjustment there. We're going to review these, review them one by one. I'm going through these very quickly as an example. Again, we're going to say we're not doing this particular activity, or we don't want to spend any resources on doing that particular activity. Excuse me. And so we do that for 2018. Same thing for 2019. We are going to make some adjustments here as well. So in this case, let's say that we're happy with all the activities here, except for the one about collaboration, that we're planning on not pursuing anymore. So we would have made other adjustments as well. I'm just going through this very quickly. So other things that we want to do are consider additional plans that may have been created since this plan was last updated. So I had incorporated the next fiscal year's work plan, which hadn't been added to this particular document or the ETEP yet. Another thing you may want to incorporate may be, so as an example, let's just say that the tribe had developed a climate adaptation plan, a climate action plan, and you want to incorporate objectives from that climate action plan into here. So here's an example of a climate action plan. And so in this case, we're going to say that, we're going to go down here. There's some goals, and then there's some objectives. And then you may copy and paste or somehow integrate these objectives into the plan based on where they seem appropriate. So I'm not finding the specific objectives, but they're somewhere in this plan. So each plan is going to vary in terms of where the objectives are located and whether they have a timeline for them. So another thing you may want to do is actually review the gap guidance, the gap guidebook as well, reviewing the capacity indicators for potential activities that you want to pursue. If you had gone through my process, you would have reviewed and incorporated the ones you want to pursue this when you developed your original plan, but things change and activities you thought were not appropriate when you originally developed the plan or in previous years when you updated the plan may now be something that you want to incorporate into the plan. So you may review these, and let's say, if this is waste, let's just pretend that we're doing the waste program cut sheet instead. You may want to go through the tribal waste management program capacity indicators and consider whether you want to pursue some of these. And, let's say you don't have a waste management plan, you didn't have that, you might incorporate there. And then you might, you'll add the capacity indicator numbers as well. Another thing you'll want to consider incorporating into the plan are the possible activities. So in this case, there's a series of possible activities that were ideas that we came up with in developing the plan, or we added at some point, but they either were something we weren't sure we wanted to pursue, but we wanted to keep it on our radar, or was something that we knew we only wanted to pursue in a future year. So in this case, let's say that reviewing these activities, we definitely now want to develop a GHG, a greenhouse gas emissions tracking system and database, and that we want to do that in 2019. So we're going to change that from possible to 2019. And so I also mentioned that you're going to change the time frame of this plan from 2016 to 2019 to 2020, 2017 to 2020. So in this case, we are going to add some space, and then we're going to add the 2020 activities. You will highlight a row, and then you will add additional blank rows so you can add these activities. So in this case, I'm going to do the same way as before. I'm going to highlight it, right-click, go to Insert Rows Above, and then I'm going to repeat this activity, which you can do by hitting Control-Y. You also let's see, right here, I believe you can... I don't see it here. File. I'm so used to doing it that way that it's... So Control-Y, there's a repeat activity as well that you can hit the menu. You also can just insert them one by one over and over again. But Control-Y will repeat an activity that you just did. That's what I use. Okay, so I'm going to insert a series of different columns. In this case, there are a lot of activities that are occurring on an ongoing basis that I would focus on copying and pasting first. So this is, in reviewing the 2019 activities, these three activities, education outreach, securing funding, and training, are all recurring activities. So I'm going to paste those here, except I'm going to change the year 2020. And also, perhaps that's reviewing and updating the climate adaptation plan. So by this point, by 2020, the climate change adaptation plan will be completed. Another activity we may want to do is implementation. So in 2019, we have the pilot implementation. So we would add an implementation objective for those activities, and anything else you want to add. And then in reviewing your plans, you may add additional possible activities as well. In updating this, you may also choose to change this particular table if there's somehow some difference in plans to manage authorized EPA programs. What that means is explained in other training videos, but the focus here was on reviewing and modifying the program objectives, and you would do it in a comprehensive manner. You would go through it completely, through every single objective. So it may take you a little more time than it just took me to do this, but it won't take you that long. And then at this point, you can save the document. You can share it with other people. Other people may make changes as well, and eventually the document will be ready for somebody else to incorporate these changes into the main spreadsheet, which is back here. So thank you for watching this training video.